Welcome to this brief introduction to Individual Development Plans or IDPs. An IDP is simply a strategic plan for your development. What is an IDP? Well, it's a plan that outlines your career goals and ways that you're going to accomplish them. It's also a tool that helps identify what these might be if you're not familiar with it. It's also a great way to work with your supervisor to understand your needs and the organization's needs. But let's also focus on what an IDP is not. An IDP is not a performance review or performance plan. An IDP is not a contract, and an IDP is certainly not a guarantee of promotion. Each IDP is unique to a person's development and goals. Think about it. Everybody learns differently, so everybody's individual development plan should be different. It's quite acceptable for a supervisor to assign learning to an employee, but this is called a learning plan and it's top-down. An individual development plan is bottom-up and employee-centered. As we said before, an IDP is a strategic plan for your development. Just like any strategic plan, it's going to help you describe who, what, where, how, and why. The mantra of planning the work and working the plan is going to help you get the kind of development that you need to progress in the career moves that you want to do. It's not just a form. We typically do an IDP at the same time we do performance reviews. However, performance and development, though related, are two separate categories and topics. In order to be successful in creating really effective goals and objectives, you're going to use the SMART model. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. An IDP starts with a goal. Why are you doing an IDP in the first place? What does success look like? What is your end state? From the why is derived the what. What are you going to try to accomplish? Your learning objectives support your goal. Your learning objectives describe knowledge, skills, and abilities that you're going to need. Finally, your learning objectives are broken down into development activities. Development activities like job rotation, details, coaching, learning groups, self-directed learning like computer programs and books help you meet your objectives, which in turn help you achieve your goals. Each goal can and should have more than one objective, and each objective can have multiple activities that help meet that objective. The IDP form helps you and guides you, but it is not the IDP process. Several tools exist to help you through the individual development plan process. There are guides, there are individual development plan digital tools, and there are templates that you can use to fill out the form. One of the critical mistakes that is often made when creating an IDP is starting with the how, focusing on those classes or trainings or programs that we want to take, without asking ourselves first what we're trying to accomplish or why we're doing it in the first place. Start with why. Simon Sinek's now famous TED Talk explains the power of why. It is the wellspring to which everything else is derived. In terms of the IDP, the why is the goal. There are functionally three broad goals that you can have with respect to any role that you want in an IDP. You are either becoming familiar with a new circumstance or role that you are just starting, you're looking to master a role that you're familiar with and add detail and competence, or you're stretching yourself to new possibilities and new positions. The role or function you are trying to develop establishes why you are doing your IDP. It could be a job title like Chief Ranger or Budget Tech. It could be a function like Project Manager or Coordinator, or it could be a set of technical issues such as GIS or backhoe operation. You can have more than one goal, long, medium, or short. Ideally, these would all relate to each other. If you are stumped, focus on near-term goals. You've identified at least one goal for yourself. What do you need to do to achieve that goal? What steps do you need to take? How are you going to get there? We're going to move on to the next step and think about knowledge, skills, and abilities and behaviors needed to meet your goals. Objectives describe what you will do to achieve your goal. Often these are the most difficult thing to articulate in an IDP and will take some time for both to discover what you might not know or need and to articulate them in a good objective. What knowledge, skill, or ability are you going to break down to help you and make your goal more manageable? Break it into chunks. Sometimes it helps to break these into other categories. For instance, are you looking at foundational skill sets such as orientation or soft skills? Are you looking at technical skill sets like medical and health, ranger skills, security? Keep in mind that somebody like a chief ranger or a facilities manager may need skills in another technical career field, such as contracting or budget or computer programs. There are entire skill sets around supervision, leadership, and management that are articulated through the Office of Personnel Management and through DOI policy. Once you've decided on the types of categories of skills, you can start to drill down and look for places where you can actually find the specific knowledge, skills, and abilities that are associated with those skill areas. So a knowledge is an organized body or information, usually factual or procedural in nature. Skills are proficient manual, verbal, or mental manipulation of data or things. So you typically would have a lot of knowledge, and then applying that knowledge would create skills. If you bundle a set of skills together, they create abilities, the power or capacity to perform an activity or task. Where do you find these KSAs? Well, a good place to start is your career field manager. Every career field in the National Park Service has a training manager associated with it. Another place to look for great KSAs is to start looking for the standard position descriptions. Position descriptions in the federal government articulate specifically the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for a particular job. The Office of Personnel Management has created an HR framework for supervision, management, and leadership. The Office of Personnel Management has also created executive core qualifications around leadership that describe specific knowledge, skills, and abilities around leadership and broken them down from industry standards. Such skills are flexibility, leveraging diversity, and developing others. How do you write an effective learning objective now that you've got your KSA? Well, the key is to take an action verb, put it with the KSA, and have a time frame associated with it. So here's a list of really good action verbs that can help you determine what place you want to focus on. Is it a knowledge? Well, if it's a knowledge, then you're going to look at words like cite or recall or review. Is it a skill? Well, skills are demonstrating, contrasting, detecting, using. Is it an ability? Collecting, comparing, critiquing, evaluating, synthesizing. These are the kinds of words that you're going to use to describe those. So we take this action word with a KSA and put them together. Here's some examples from administration. In terms of knowledge, you might want to translate policy memos into recommendations for administrative actions by the start of the fiscal year. A skill might be interpret the park's NPS scorecard rating to potential management actions for the next budget meeting. And abilities might be formulate division of administration operational budget using FPPS, FBMS, and current cost projections by December 3rd. What about some facility management situations? Again, your action verb, your KSA, and then a time frame. So an example of facility management for knowledge might be discuss the importance of asset management with the team by next tailgate session. A skill might be use the cost estimating tool in PMIS to create a Class B estimate for the next year's budget proposals. Abilities could be score the facility condition index of the new visitor center and the park leadership team within the next 3 months. How about park ranger or interpretation? Well, again, you take your action words at whatever level you want, your knowledge, skill, or ability, and apply it with your KSAs. So knowledge might be recognize 6 different audience types for discussing controversial topics by August 12th. A skill, apply the principles of the 4 truths to develop my article before it's due. Or an ability, evaluate 3 interpretive programs for effective use of audience-centered techniques by February. This is the easy part. You have your goal, you just went through your KSAs, now we can move on to how to reach your goals. So think about it. Given any different type of thing, what you want to learn, there are lots of different ways that you can actually go about learning it. You can get a job rotation, you can do a collateral duty, a task force, a committee, you can get a coach or a mentor, you can have self-development with a computer program or reading a manual. You can participate in a professional organization or join in a club. You can do volunteer work, networking, shadowing assignments, go into DI learn searches. If nothing else is available, you may have to be very creative and create your own learning opportunities yourself and work with your supervisor to discover opportunities for you to help develop. Typically, in the NPS, people think of formal training when completing their IDP. We encourage you to be creative when you are deciding on how you'll reach your development goals. Consider the 7-20-10 learning model. This suggests that the majority of what people learn is through practical and informal means, not formal training. Think about it. When you learn how to ride a bike, it took practice and time. You didn't go to a class on bike riding. What's the most impactful way that you learn? At this point, you have enough information to complete your IDP, this strategic plan for your development. You've got a goal. You've broken the goal down into objectives and KSAs. Those KSAs have then been looked at how to be developed through development activities such as coaching or online classes. But what about a supervisor? As you create your IDP, it is important to have discussions with your supervisor through the process. As a supervisor, you should check with your employees regularly. Keep an eye out for opportunities for them to help them reach their goals and allow time for them to develop. We can plan and strategize all we want, but how do we make sure that we're successful? Does our NPS culture encourage development? What can you do as a supervisor or a peer to encourage and support development of your staff? As a supervisor, we're responsible for creating the culture in which learning can take place. When you're reviewing and discussing IDPs with your staff, you should remain aware of the larger organizational goals. Here's some concrete ways that you as a supervisor can create a learning organization. Invest time to have regular conversations about development with your employees. Allow them to take the time to develop themselves. Seek out opportunities to not just go to class, but actually learn on the job or informally. Provide ongoing feedback on development and progress. Ultimately, it is your responsibility as a supervisor to create that environment in which learning and development is valued. If that learning and development is valued, that'll be paying dividends. If it is not, then it's going to be much harder for us to achieve our organizational goals. By now, you probably have a lot of questions. We've covered a lot of information really quickly. To sum up, the individual development plan is not just a form, but it's a process to help you identify goals and development activities. Where do we go from here? Well, the first place you should go is probably your supervisor. Secondly, there are guides and forms available on the Common Learning Portal. Another resource is the digital individual development plan at idp.nps.gov. Other resources include your employee development officer for your region or your career field manager. We wish you the best of luck with your individual development plans.